once I got back into training, I still hadn't chose a race. I was a week back into training and still hadn't chosen a race. I'd kind of narrowed it down to Ironman Hamburg, Ironman Des Moines, and Ironman Cairns. Anyway, so this went on. Every morning I'd wake up and say to Elise, oh, I think I might do Des Moines, and then the next day I'd wake up and say, oh, I think I might do Hamburg. So this went on for like 2 weeks. Finally, decided.
Want to tell us what we're doing today?
Oh yeah, we're just going for a 4-hour ride to the Grand Canyon, as you do. I have a 4-hour ride with a 1 hour and a 30-minute interval. So apparently it's about 4 hours to ride to the Grand Canyon. So we're going to ride to the Grand Canyon, and I'm going to do my 1 hour run off the bike around the Grand Canyon. Yay!
What are you doing?
Well, for the last 3 days, my power meter is taking ages to connect, which I think it means maybe it's got a flat battery, so I think we'll just change it today. We just won't take any risks. Oh, it's found it now. Do you think I should change it or not? No, we're right. It's found it. I don't know. It's fine. I'm not going to die if my power meter dies. Not a big deal.
Can't wait for that stress later.
I've got a spare battery in the bag that comes with us everywhere now because of all these flat tires. I literally have a spare everything in a bag that goes with the SAG vehicle. It's Grand Canyon Day. Vibes high. It's actually hot out here.
It is.
See ya in an hour and 40 minutes.
Yep. How's that?
It was obviously a bit hot out there. Look at this.
Bit of salt?
Salty. Yeah, I'm glad to get off the freaking road. First time I felt like I'm going to die here in America riding. Obviously tourists Can't wait an extra 1 or 2 seconds to go a bit further around cyclists. Glad I'm alive.
Just going to put it out here, but I reckon this might be one of the better runs.
This is probably a good run off the bike destination. What did you just say to me? I said, can you please pass me my phone? And you said, it's in my bag. It's so inconvenient. This trip is so inconvenient for me. Some for coming from the sag who's been sitting in the car for the last 4 hours while I've ridden to the Grand Canyon is telling me how inconvenient getting my phone out of the bag on her back is.
She forgot her nutrition and I had to go back for that.
And we're like literally 100 meters away from the car. Running at 2,200 meters in 30-degree heat is hard.
So what is today's run?
1 hour easy, which is not feeling overly easy right now. Justice, I don't think. Does it?
You guys, we just saw a Grand Canyon horse. It's not a proper horse. It's not like a horse in Australia. It's an Arizonian horse.
Every time Elise sees an animal, like she's never seen one before. I'll say Macca's for dinner.
This is such a treat. We never go out. I'm so excited.
Consider like going to Macca's going out. How sad is that life?
So we're about to leave Flagstaff. Do you want to give everyone an update on what's next?
Okay, so we got back to Flagstaff, I don't even know, 2.5 weeks ago I think, after Ironman World Champs in St. George, and pretty much I had a week of recovery, a week off, well I had like 3 or 4 days off and then a few days of recovery and getting back into things. And it was always the plan for me, regardless of the outcome at St. George, it was always the plan for me to do another Ironman 4 or 5 weeks after St. George. So didn't want to choose which one because just wanted to see what happened at St. George and how I felt afterwards and what my plans were for the rest of the year in terms of travel. Wanted to kind of figure all that out first and then choose a race dependent on that. So basically, once I got back into training, I still hadn't chose a race. I was a week back into training and still hadn't chosen a race. I'd kind of narrowed it down to Ironman Hamburg, Ironman Des Moines and Ironman Cairns. And I had considered, I was leaving Ironman Cairns on there because I thought I could go home to Australia, do Ironman Cairns, stay at home for 3 or 4 weeks and then come back overseas because I just wasn't sure how I was going to handle being away from home for like 7 or 8 months this year. So that was the thinking about going home for Cairns. But then like the more I thought about it and the cost of the flights to go home and then come all the way back over, like it just added 2 more long haul flights into my life, which take a lot out of you. The expense of flying, you know, like probability of getting sick increases like flying. And on top of that, there's just no races at home during that period. So yeah, after about a week of thinking about that, I kind of like scrapped the Ironman Cairns idea because it just wasn't very appealing to me. So then I narrowed it down to Ironman Des Moines and Ironman Hamburg. And I just couldn't decide. Like every single day I'd change my mind. I'd have in my mind one day Des Moines and then the next day I was back on the Hamburg trail, and this went on and on and on for like 2 weeks. It was just really hard to decide between the 2 races because they both had their pros and cons. Like Des Moines is like hot and humid there, so that's not great conditions for me, but I thought like that gives me an opportunity to race in conditions like Kona and collect some data, collect some numbers and like dial in my nutrition and hydration in those kinds of conditions. So that was like a pro, easier travel, like 5-hour flight from Flagstaff, same country, no time zone changes or anything like that. The start list or the entry list for Des Moines was actually a lot weaker than Hamburg, so that was I was definitely taking that into account. It's the North American Championship race, so it's really good prize money there. So I was kind of looking at the entry list and thinking of like where I should finish if I had a decent race, and like the whole objective for this next race was to try and earn some money, basically to cover some of the cost of all this overseas travel. So that was definitely one of the higher priorities in trying to choose the race. And with this entry list of Des Moines, yeah, it looked like if I had a good race, I might be able to finish quite well there based on the entry list. And then we had, on the other hand, we had Hamburg, and which I'll talk about a bit later, that like I'm heading over to Europe anyway, so doing Hamburg is just basically on the way over to Europe. Obviously I did really well there last year, so I have really good memories, good vibes. I know the course. Always when I see a stronger start list, I just get really excited about it. I know it's really dumb financially because I could chase other races where I'm more likely to do well and get paid well, but there's just something in me that gets really excited about racing in stronger fields. Yeah, and it's a great course and great conditions for me. It's like cooler conditions, Northern European conditions, and it's like a flat time trial type course and a flat run. And I just love racing in Europe. Like racing in Europe is just a total different experience. So both of them had lots of pros. Anyway, so this went on. Every morning I'd wake up and say to Elise, oh, I think I might do Des Moines. And then the next day I'd wake up and say, oh, I think I might do Hamburg. So this went on for like 2 weeks. Finally, decided, when was that? Like 3 days ago?
Yeah, 3 days ago.
What day is it today? It's Thursday. I think, yeah, finally decided maybe 3 days ago. Yeah, it was on Tuesday. I think Monday or Tuesday this week, I finally made up my mind. I feel like there was quite a lot of pressure at that point. Everyone was like, so what race are you choosing so we can organise the rest of your training for the next couple of weeks? So I finally woke up and I was like, right, I'm doing Hamburg. That's it now. I'm not thinking about the other race. We're doing Hamburg. So then I was all excited, all happy about Hamburg, did my Instagram post, like forgot about Des Moines, all eyes on Hamburg. Booked flights, everything that day. Organised all our travel, accommodation, everything was all sorted to go. Then, for whatever reason, I'm lying in bed on Monday night. I think it was like 9 p.m. Before we came to America, like months ago, I checked the entry requirements to Europe. And it seemed like a lot of the countries in Europe were dropping all their COVID restrictions. But it seemed like any country that did have restrictions was always just, if you're double vaxxed, you're fine. Which I am double vaxxed. So for whatever reason, on Monday night when I'm like lying in bed, I think I might have got an email from the airline actually, like just one of those reminder emails that your flight's coming up and like check that you meet all the requirements and stuff. Clicked on the link and go to our airline, which we booked through Delta, go to what the entry requirements are for Germany, and there in like bold writing it says you must be vaccinated to enter. If you're coming from America, you have to be double vaccinated and your last dose has to be within 270 days. Anyway, as soon as I saw that, I started sweating because I was like, knew kind of off the top of my head that I wouldn't be within that 270 days because I got vaccinated when I was in America last year. So anyway, looked on my certificate, last vaccination was like late July, Googling like day calculator, put in the days. Of course, it's 309 days since my second dose. So then I was like, went into panic mode, obviously. And then I was like, shit, well maybe I can go and get the booster and this will be solved. And then in the fine print underneath that it says, for Germany specifically, your booster must be 14 days before departure to be considered boosted. So then I'm like messaging Elise from my room, like having a complete freaking meltdown. And I think I went to sleep that night. I was just like Googling everything, and actually after I started Googling it, there was all this conflicting information about what Germany's actual entry requirements are. So I stayed up, I reckon, till like 1 a.m. and I had to get up at like, I think we got up at like 4:45 or something to go to the pool the next morning. So I had like 3.5-4 hours sleep. Anyway, on Tuesday, thank goodness I had a like recovery day. So basically I was just in complete meltdown mode as of Tuesday, and I was like literally back to freaking doing Des Moines again. I was like walking around the house like a crazy person. I was still in like my pajamas at lunchtime. My hair was like a bird's nest. Between Elise and I, like we just spent probably 6 hours on the phone to airlines, Googling information, speaking to people overseas through Instagram to try and get clarification on what the actual entry rules are, because every different airline was saying that the rule was different. Like most of the airlines were saying that you just had to be double vaccinated, there was no actual time frame on it, but then our airline was saying that there was a time frame on it. Rang Delta, on hold for like an hour and a half, finally get through to someone. Of course they're just like a call center in India and they're just reading off the computer screen. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the detail. It was very, very stressful, basically. So it got to the point where I was like, well, I'm not going to go and get my booster because I don't want to be rushed into that decision, because I've been avoiding getting it because I don't think I need it, and I'm obviously not an anti-vaxxer because I've had 2 doses, but I just didn't think I needed the booster. So I didn't feel comfortable being rushed into like going down to Walgreens and getting the booster on that day, especially so close to a race. So I was stressed about that. And then we couldn't get any clarification on what the actual rules are. Anyway, it was just a very highly stressful situation. And then by the end of the day, I just said to Liz, God, like, we've got to find some perspective here. Some people are like sick and they can't even race. So if I have to change the race I'm doing, like big deal, I have to change the race I'm doing. So I think at like 10 points we're at 10 different decisions. I think we decided to do Des Moines at one point, and then we got back onto the trail and trying to clarify the rules, and then we changed our mind again. And anyway, one of my Instagram family friends who lives over in Europe, she was so kind and made like all these phone calls for us, like calling the German Federal Police, German border control. Who else was she called? The airport.
Friends at airport, that worked at airport.
Management at the airport, to to get like clarification on the rule, and she basically came back to us and said, right, I have called the federal police who are literally work on the borders and have the say on this, and they're saying 2 doses, and it doesn't come into effect until October, that 270-day time frame. Straight. What?
Flagstaff here.
No, I'm following the map.
Where are you going?
I'm following the map. Yeah, my friend Nina, my Instagram friend Nina, made all these calls, and she's like, nah, I've called the federal police, and they've said they're the ones who deal with border control, and they have said 100% it's just 2 doses that is the definition of fully vaccinated there right now, and the 270-day time limit doesn't come into effect until October. So we decided that obviously we meet all the obligations, but the problem is it's the airline, like, and I know this from traveling the last few years, it's actually, you don't have much trouble at immigration at the countries. It's actually like the airline, when you check in, it's their responsibility to check all your paperwork for the destination that you're going. So I had to cancel the Delta flights. Thank goodness it was still within the 24-hour time frame, so we got all the money back. We decided to cancel that because their requirements weren't actually in line with what Germany's requirements are. So cancelled those flights, and then we were like, gosh, imagine if no one could actually give us a straight answer on whether that 270-day time limit or not applies. So we thought to take an extra precaution, we'll fly. There's no direct flight to Germany anyway. You have to either fly to Amsterdam or Copenhagen from the USA and then get to Hamburg, like an internal flight to get to Hamburg. So we thought, to take an extra precaution, we're going to fly into Denmark because they actually have no COVID restrictions right now. We're both going to get a COVID test the day before we leave. We've both got our vaccination certificate showing double dose. Elise is boosted anyway. And then on top of that, I also got Ironman to write me a letter and the PTO to write me a letter explaining my job as a professional triathlete, and then I'm participating in events in Germany because there's actually an exemption to enter Germany. They actually give there's an exemption category for business people or professional athletes if you're coming there simply to perform your job, and you're not vaccinated. Either you're vaccinated or non-vaccinated, this exemption applies. So I got letters from both of them as well. So basically we've got all bases covered. Getting the COVID test, got the vaccination certificate, and got the letters showing I'm there to do my job. Anyway, so we changed the flights, rebooked flights, got flying to Copenhagen, and then once we get to Copenhagen, we're getting an internal flight from Copenhagen into Hamburg. So back on the Hamburg train after a very stressful couple of days, and that's just like a summarized version of this stuff. So hopefully that gives everyone an indication of how stressful still it is 2.5 years down the track to travel off the back of or during a pandemic. But it's just so crazy, all the countries in Europe, like you've got Germany in the middle who have these restrictions, and then you've got Denmark above it and Switzerland below it who have 0 COVID restrictions and requirements, no vaccination requirements anymore. It's just crazy that they're all so close together and have all these different rules. So back on the Hamburg Trail, and when I was making that decision, I thought to myself, if there's a 1% chance that something goes wrong and I can't do this race for whatever reason, we can't get into Germany, whatever, I have to be happy with the outcome I have to be satisfied that I may not race, and that's the decision I've made. If there is that 1% chance, then I don't race, and there's plenty of other races in Europe. So we are leaving in literally 4 days after all that. We leave Flagstaff very early on Tuesday morning, and we'll get to Hamburg on Wednesday afternoon, and I'm very excited. I freaking love that race, such good memories, can't wait, and it's the European Championship, so mega excited about that. And then a couple of days after the race, our next home base is going to be St. Moritz. And I haven't been to St. Moritz for 2 years now because of the pandemic, and I spent 2 summers there in 2018, 2019, I think it was, and I just love that place so much. So found some really cheap accommodation there. Another good friend, Oriana, who lives in Switzerland, just magic. Found us this like super cheap car rental place. Like it literally is the third of the price as of a normal car rental. So we're basing ourselves in St. Moritz for 3 months, which I cannot wait for. And then I haven't kind of like worked out the race plan for the rest of the year, but the rough plan is we'll go to St. Moritz for a few months. I'll do some 70.3s in Europe just for training, but the focus will always be on Ironman. And I'll probably do another Ironman a month before Kona, either in Europe or the US, and then we're actually heading to Kona a month early. So I'll be training like on the course and staying in Kona for a month before the race, and then fly home to Australia. So I should be home to Australia mid-October. That's the plan at this stage, but cannot wait to share the next, well, even like just the travel over to Germany and Hamburg. Can't wait to share that with you guys. We'll do a pre-race, like pre-Hamburg race week video, and then we can't wait to do a like travel from Germany to Switzerland video and show you some of the scenery. It's going to be, you guys are going to be mind blown. It's so amazing. So yeah, lots of awesome content coming in the next few months.